So, today we're talking about a pretty risky bet, but it's not the kind you'd make in a casino. Nope, this one's happening on college campuses all across the country. We're going to dive deep into a brand new study that's taking on the growing problem of student gambling with a completely fresh playbook.
First things first, let's set the stage. College is supposed to be this time of freedom and amazing opportunities. But for way too many students, it's also becoming a really high-stakes environment where gambling can cause some serious harm. It's what some are calling a hidden epidemic, and honestly, the numbers are pretty startling.
Just look at this number, over 10%. I mean, think about that for a second. That's about 1 in every 10 college students globally who are dealing with problem gambling. This isn't some tiny, fringe issue. It's a major public health concern, and it's playing out in dorm rooms and with student loan money.
So, you have to ask, why college? What is it about campus life? Well, the research points to what's basically a perfect storm of risk. You've got all this new independence, right? Then you add in some powerful peer pressure. Plus, it's never been easier to get access to online betting. You combine all that with the real financial stress and mental health challenges students face, and you've got a recipe for real vulnerability.
And look, this is a pretty stark warning coming straight from the researchers. Basically, what they're saying is if we just let this go, it's going to escalate. And that's why there's such an urgent need for an approach that's actually built on solid science. So before we get to the new solution, it's worth understanding why the old ways just didn't work.
Okay, so this isn't exactly a new problem, right? Universities have been trying to deal with it for years, with awareness campaigns and posters and things like that. But as those numbers clearly show, the old playbook, it just wasn't cutting it. So where did it all go wrong? Well, the big issue was that most of the old efforts were just about giving students information. Telling them gambling is risky. And look, that's important for sure, but it just wasn't enough to actually change somebody's behavior in the long run. It was good for getting the word out, but it didn't really transform anything. And that is exactly where this new study comes in, proposing a pretty radical shift. It's all built around a new framework called the multi-theory model, or MTM for short, and it's designed to fix the very reasons why those old methods came up short. So, what is this multi-theory model? Well, it's designed to do something other approaches just couldn't crack. It focuses on two really key things. First, helping someone start a new, healthy behavior. And second, and here's the kicker, the really hard part, it gives them the tools to actually stick with it over time. It's all about creating change that lasts, not just a temporary fix. So how does it work? Well, instead of just handing out flyers or giving a lecture, the MTM actually builds a whole support system around the student. It's a 6-part journey. It all starts with sparking a real conversation. Then it moves on to building confidence using things like role-playing to practice for tricky situations. From there, it's about changing the environment around them, teaching them how to manage their emotions, and having them practice new habits through things like journaling. It's a full toolkit, not just a warning sign. Okay, so a powerful theory is one thing, but you gotta ask, does it actually work in the real world? To find out, researchers designed a pretty cool experiment called RESPONSIBLEPLAY. To figure that out, the researchers are using what's called a randomized controlled trial, an RCT, and that's pretty much the gold standard in science. The easiest way to think about it is like a clinical trial for a new medicine, but instead of a pill, they're testing a new way to change behavior. It's the best way we have to prove cause and effect. So here's the setup. It's like a scientific showdown. They took a group of at-risk students and split them in two. Group 1, they got the old school approach. Lectures, presentations about the risks, the usual stuff. But Group 2, they got the full Responsible Play SIS program, the new interactive stuff built on the MTM. The question is simple. Which one would actually make a difference? And listen, this wasn't just a one-and-done thing. The study tracked these students for 11 weeks. They started with a pre-test, went through all the sessions, and then did a final follow-up 8 weeks later. And that long-term view, that's absolutely crucial, because it's the only way to see if the change actually sticks. So, who exactly was in this study? Well, every student had to fit 3 specific criteria. They were all over 21, all students at the same university in the Southwest, and, this is key, every single one of them had already been flagged as being at moderate risk or higher for problem gambling. This was all about focusing the test on the very students who needed help the most. Now, this is so much more than just some academic paper. If this new approach really works, what could that mean for students everywhere? What's the real payoff here? Honestly, the implications are huge. If this is a success, it means we'd finally have a scientifically proven way to reduce gambling harm on campus. We'd have a model that any college in the country could pick up and use. It would be a massive shift from just giving out pamphlets to actually giving students practical tools to make healthier choices, and it could help build smarter public health policies for everyone.
And you know what? The potential here could go even further, because the multi-theory model is really about the science of making good habits stick. It's not just about gambling. Think about it. This same blueprint, it could be adapted to help students with all sorts of other challenges, from substance use to digital addiction.
Which really brings us to the final, big-picture question. If this experiment is a success, we could be looking at the start of a whole new playbook. A smarter, more effective way to promote health and well-being for an entire generation of students on campuses all over the world. There is a lot riding on this bet.